Today on Context, believers under the fire of persecution. A man who was imprisoned and tortured for his faith, and another who has traveled undercover to serve persecuted churches in Asia for decades. I'm Lorna Duick, and you're watching Context, the show that looks at life beyond the headlines. A place of worship is bombed. A pastor is shot for sharing the faith. Believers are tortured and executed for converting from one faith to another. This is religious persecution. And for millions around the world, it is a daily threat and a fact of life. Who is listening to the voices of believers under fire? Today, we listen and put religious persecution in context. Our first two guests are joining us from Ottawa. Majid El-Shafie is the founder of One Free World International, a human rights organization dedicated to defending religious minorities. And Dr. Janet at Buckingham, professor at Trinity Western University, who specializes in religious freedom law. Janet, let's start with you. Newsweek's recent cover story broke a media silence on religious persecution. 200,000 Christians are murdered each year simply because of their chosen faith. The atheist author of this article describes that as genocide. Tell us what this religious persecution looks like worldwide.
It's different in many parts of the world, Lorna, and I have to say I'm really pleased to see the breaking of this kind of news because it's been the great untold story. We have around the world, we have pastors in prison in communist countries, places like North Korea where they're in re-education camps and they die under terrible circumstances. We have situations where in many Islamic fundamentalist countries, if you change religion from Islam, you get the death penalty. And that's what's happening to Pastor Youssef in Iran, for example. He may have already been executed for converting to Christianity. We also have places where there are civil wars going on, like Nigeria or other violence or revolution, places like Egypt, where Majid is from, where Christians are being persecuted as part of a larger violence, but they become targets.
Majid, your body does bear the scars of having been persecuted in Iraq. You converted from Islam to Christianity. You now work with religiously persecuted people. Iraq is one of your specialties. Here's the rationale given by our immigration minister for why Canada is helping in Iraq.
In many cases, people whose churches have been destroyed, whose daughters have been violated, whose priests have been beheaded, and not just Christians, of course, people from other communities who feel that it is impossible for them to resettle back in Iraq. Canada has to do its part. Moreover, this is a group of refugees who are blending into Canadian society quickly and successfully.
Majid, you've recently met with Canada's ambassador from Iraq. What are you learning about our activism there?
Well, I visited Iraq 3-4 months ago, and just today I met with the Iraqi ambassador to Canada this morning, just to follow up on the persecution that taking place against the Christian minority and other minorities in Iraq as well. And I think the situation there is getting from bad to worse, if you ask me. The minute that the Americans left the country, I think that immediately there was some signs of violence, even against Muslim Sunnis, for example, and against the vice president of Iraq himself, Tariq al-Hashemi. And it's really very disturbing to see that the situation in Iraq is getting worse, is not getting better.
You've been to the site of the tragic church massacres, Our Lady of Salvation. You've got a bullet from that. We're now going to roll some tape from one of those sites in Iraq. And let's listen to the resolve of the priests following this killing at their church.
They want to kill our bodies, but they cannot kill our souls because our faith is not the faith of killing or the faith of violence. Our faith is the faith of forgiveness.
That's the response of the priests amongst the dead in Iraq. Our faith is a faith of forgiveness. What are they hoping that we in a free country will do about the religious persecution they are facing?
I think they are hoping from us to follow the Bible. The Bible said faith without action is a dead faith. I think it's very sad to see the church here or the Christians here is not active enough when it comes to the persecution of the Christians around the world. The truth and the reality that here we have to be actively advocating in behalf of the persecuted church. One of the major things that Canada have to do is to connect our aid and international trade to the improvement of human rights in these countries. Laura, I'm not just talking about Iraq. Iraq is just one country. Even in the middle of what's so-called Arab Spring, which is really a joke, we see that the persecution increasing, even to the Christians in Egypt. Now we're starting in Syria. Now we see Libya immediately declared Sharia law the minute that the NATO soldiers left the country. Now, I'm not against Islamic State, but the fact here is that we have to have a separation between the state and the religion. Don't force your religion on me.
Okay, Janet, how significant is Canada's new Office of Religious Freedom given those realities?
It couldn't come at a more important time when we're daily seeing issues of religious violence and persecution in other countries. We need our Foreign Affairs Office to have, to be equipped to deal with the religious persecution. It is incredibly important, and quite honestly, organizations that deal with religious persecution internationally have been calling for this for years, and I think it is an important step for Canada to be engaging at this level.
Okay, it's a very small budget, $5 million, hasn't yet been rolled out. What can we at the grassroots do about relating to that office and relating to the international need?
I think on the grassroots, we have to discuss the matter with our MPs, our Senate, our government. We have to express to them how important that is. However, here is what I'm really scared of when it comes to our Freedom of Religion office here in Canada. Number one, the main fear that I have that this office will not stand against big economic countries such as China or India. I think this office will be great when it comes to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Egypt, small little countries that we can deal about the violation of human rights that's taking place there. But when it comes to China and India, I think our office will be silent.
Okay, Janet, your opinion on what we can do at the grassroots to make sure that office is not silent.
Well, one of the most important things is to be in touch with our politicians and let them know we want to see this happen, and we want to see an office that's really going to do something, that's really going to address the issues and not just be window dressing.
All right. Janet at Buckingham, Majid Al-Shafi, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Now it's time to find out what you think. Should the Canadian government do more to address religious persecution overseas? Yes or no? And send us your answers by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter, or you can leave us a video message on our website. We'd love to know what you think, so be part of the conversation. Our studio audience is going to take a live vote, and I'll have those results when we come back. Next up, we'll go deeper and explore the roots of religious persecution.